All right, you guys ready?
Ready.
Let's do this thing. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Alliance Group podcast. We have yet another awesome episode today. Two extremely special guests. We have Miss Tina and Mr. Lyall Donnelly, all the way from Denver, Colorado. These are founding partners of Five Rings Financial. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, we were there in the very beginning.
The very beginning.
The very beginning.
And we were just talking about this. It's kind of tripping me out to go back and think of where Five Rings is. You guys first met founder and president of Five Rings Financial, Mike Wilk, in 2003.
Yep.
2003, and here we are about to hit 2023 as we're shooting this. Mm-hmm. You're going on 20 years with Five Rings Financial, and the success, it's just an unbelievable success story. You guys have been there for the whole thing.
Yes.
That's incredible. It's we were talking about 2 years ago, 2019. This was right before the pandemic hit. We threw something, Mayron from National Life Group threw something for Five Rings. We called it unofficially, actually officially, the Big Ass Party. And this was a huge party that we had here in Atlanta. We flew in a bunch of Five Rings people. You guys were here. It was a party to end all parties, I call it, because it was literally right before COVID. It was the last party that a lot of us went to for a long time. But this was a party to celebrate $5 million of production. Is that right?
Yep.
$5 million of production, which was it still is a huge accomplishment.
It was a big stretch when he put that out there.
Right. I remember him throwing that goal out there and me thinking, wow, they're really going to have to grow even more at an even more increased rate to get to that number. Here we are, the end of 2022. You guys are knocking on the door. It is going to happen. It's just a matter of, in the next couple of weeks, just a couple of cases going place. Five Rings is going to do what?
15 million.
15. Yeah.
15.
Boom.
So, boom. That's a big old boom. So, point being, the success story that is Five Rings Financial continues. The story continues to write itself, and the story gets crazier and crazier with every passing year. Lyall, you guys have been there since the very beginning. You were telling us a story earlier about how you met Mike Wilk, and it is a very good story. It's a great story. So, talk to me a little bit about how it is that you, maybe not the entire story from the very beginning, but what is it that you saw in Mike and this opportunity, and kind of talk to me about the meeting and that partnership as it has developed over, now we're talking almost 20 years now.
Yep. So 21 years ago, I accidentally got into the health insurance business.
Right.
And a client told me I should get out of the health insurance business. I was kind of like barking up the wrong tree. So he said, you ought to get into these index accounts things. So that's where I met Mike in Kansas City. I was telling you earlier that our first mentor that we ever had in our life was many, many years ago.
Right.
And so I thought, I just need to find another mentor. So divinely inspired, somehow, some way, we met Mike in Kansas City, and he came to Denver. I was actually just asking him to just introduce me to somebody in his organization.
Right. You're like, I need a mentor. I'm getting into this. You're probably too big for me, but can you point me to someone who might need a mentee, right?
Right. I just said, hey, you got somebody in the Denver area that can take me under their wing?
Right.
He said, nope. And so we had another conversation. That's when he said, okay, I'll come to Denver myself. So in July of 2003, Mike came to Denver. And we just hung around for a couple of days. I couldn't figure out what he was doing. And I think what he was doing was just checking us out to see if we were real, because he didn't have time to be messing with somebody. And he must have liked us because he said, okay, I'll come back in October and we'll get this thing started. So that's how it all started. Yeah.
Wow.
October 2003.
Tina, were you guys working together at that point already? You guys were already a team?
We've been business owners our whole adult life, and most of the businesses we worked together, but I was still in our old construction industry, and he was doing health insurance, and what Mike's on us, who knows? That's crazy, right?
Well, I mean,
we were brand new to the industry.
But he obviously saw something, and he obviously has a pretty good instinct for these things. 20 years later, you guys have helped build Five Rings Financial into an absolute juggernaut. And as I was saying before, it's not like, oh, well, this explosion happened and now they're all the way up here. It's like this explosion is currently happening.
It's happening, yeah.
It's like a mushroom cloud. You know, you watch like a nuclear explosion, and there's an explosion that you think is big, and then there's the, and it kind of feels like just maybe the beginning of this mushroom cloud that you guys are putting out there. You guys talked a lot, and you do talk a lot. I've had the pleasure of hearing you guys speak at many Five Rings events. You're always, you know, one of the most honored speakers there with your background and who you are to this organization. You talk a lot about mentorship, which is something that runs through the blood and the DNA of Five Rings Financial. It's like each one teach one, and in some way, each one teach many. Tina, talk a little bit about the idea of mentorship and how much it means just in business in general, but specifically within Five Rings. Why is mentorship something that you guys hold so high?
Well, when we were first married years and years ago in the 80s, Lyall had a career selling resort real estate, and that was our first experience with a mentor. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of, we just understood that old school kind of apprentice master environment.
The grasshopper and the mouse, yeah.
Exactly, right. And it's really, really unusual in this industry because you got to think about this as a whole bunch of entrepreneurs,
right,
taking on a mindset to encourage and support and help each other and even share incomes with each other while we learn and grow in the industry, when in fact we should be competitors. So it's kind of counterintuitive to the competitive side of what the industry normally appears
fosters,
to be or
right.
seems to be. Yeah.
And it's also the fact that if you're mentoring, you're spending your time on someone else, and you're not spending it on producing, you know, necessarily writing that next piece of business to get your numbers bigger. So I think that's also the problem that some people have in the industry with the idea of, well, if I'm putting energy into someone else, then I'm not helping my own business. But Five Rings and you guys have shown that's a complete fallacy. If you can build other people, that is how you actually grow the most efficiently in y'all's system. Talk a little bit more about mentorship from your perspective, Lyall, and why you think it's so important, not only to be one once you're there, but also to get a mentor. That's what you were searching for when you found Mike.
So when I very first started working with Mike, just a quick little side note, I said, Mike, I know I can make a lot of money. I know who you are. I know you like to build stuff. I said, I don't want to do that. I just got rid of 35 employees. I don't want to do that. He says, well, you know, you're not getting any younger. That's what he said to me. I said, what do you mean by that? He says, well, if all you ever do is sell, you're going to get burnt out. But he said, if you let me help you build a team, you'll never get burnt out because you'll always be pouring your heart into somebody else's life. Mm-hmm. So I thought about that for a second. He was actually pouring himself into my life, so I needed to pay it forward. Yep. And so if people would embrace that, their lives will be much more full, and they'll actually grow. They won't be able to help building a big team.
Right. Yeah. It's just been amazing to watch. We've had several guests from Five Rings Financial on. We've had Gustavo and Marina, Koto. We've had Beatrice and Felipe Novice. And this is a theme that I always end up talking about when I have folks from Five Rings. It's like it's so important to find the right person to kind of tie your wagon to, and then to turn around and help someone, help the next person get to where they helped you, reach. So it's been pretty incredible. Just, Tina, what has it been like just in general? I know this is pretty hard to put into words, I imagine, but over 20 years, you guys have watched this organization grow. But especially lately, what is it like when you're at these, national training camp, for example, and you look around these rooms and you're like, I mean, I'm blown away by it. I can't imagine what you're feeling when you're in those scenarios.
You have moments of it being really surreal, right?
Yeah.
Like we helped start this, but we're just people, right? We've just worked. We've have really great work ethics, and we're just people. And 90% of the people that come on board with our team in the Five Rings environment are new to being entrepreneurs and working on their own. And so I I don't think that we think that it's us.
Right,
We just
right.
find people that have a little fire, and we just have built and you know, Mike has designed this incredible environment where anybody who has a little desire to do more, who has that, you know, their soul is going, I know there's more in me,
Right.
can step into this environment. And I think my feeling is that everyone in that room, all the leaders in that room, are just heart-centered servant leaders that are just pouring into other people. And so you don't really see that. I mean, obviously we all have to deal with a little bit of ego because we're doing stuff on our own, but it is such a different environment than, you know, what it could be or what somebody might suppose it would be with the fact that, you know, this business crew, we just work with people every day and don't really look at that piece of it. We're just still just, you know, in the work and loving on people. And I think most people want to be part of something that's on purpose with a purpose.
Right.
And when you're in that energy and that mindset, it isn't about that, that structure of look what I just did. Because we're just starting. It's a tiny little baby. We haven't helped nearly enough people. We haven't impacted nearly enough households. So it's just we just got lucky and got to be in the beginning.
That's an amazing thought, isn't it? It's an amazing thought that, you know, we this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much work to be done, right? It's pretty unbelievable. Lyall, talk about that a little bit. Tina touched on it. What do you think are the qualities that make for someone who really fits well in your organization? I mean, 20 years of seeing people, recruiting people, training people, seeing some people leave, you know, some people exit. What are the common qualities that you see among someone who really can thrive in Five Rings Financial?
Number one is that fire. Excuse me, that fire in their heart. Mm-hmm. They got to have that flame burning, or maybe just a flicker. Yeah. Because we've helped take people from that flicker to on fire.
Yeah.
There's that. Then also people have to. They want more in their life. That's it. And just the flame, and then I want more. People that have a purpose.
Yeah.
And people that are tired of working for a living.
I think, you know, something I've kind of noticed is a theme, and you guys use it in your messaging when you're out talking to new people. It is kind of what you've both referred to here, which is like you have that nagging feeling that like, yeah, you know, you did this and you did this in life and you ended up here, and you're kind of haunted by this. Is this going to be it? Like, is this who I am? Is this my potential? Right? Have I reached it? And there's a lot of people out there that are working their jobs for somebody else, working their day jobs that they might not like that much, with this nagging feeling in their soul that like, is this it? Is this what I was put here to do? And those are the kind of people that I think you guys look for, and I think that you can really take and help kind of fill that inner vessel, right?
Yeah, I think you know, there's a commonality among the people that are successful here, and that is not only did they desire to do more, have control of their life, maybe have control of their time, choose a better neighborhood to live in, have better schools for their kids, all of those kind of things, but they also took action. Mm-hmm. And they got really uncomfortable in the beginning, and they got really coachable. And then I think the biggest thing for us was you just have to trust the system and the model and mm-hmm. the people that are mentoring you. You just kind of have to have this blind faith for a while you get in there. It's obvious that all of the products that we work with and the companies that we represent are amazing.
Right.
That's a given. So then it's all about doing it enough that you can do it on your own. And I think the people that have a hard time here is they're not willing to just trust and turn over the activity. You know, they just do the activity that is required in the beginning, and then just get in the groove of it, and just spend enough time in the actual actions of doing the business versus studying it or watching it or whatever. You got to actually do it.
Right.
You got to be with people.
Right. Or take, I see what I'm supposed to do, but let me just take some time to rework it. And I think I can improve this tried and true 20-year-old system, and I'll do it on my own. I'm going to take some time to perfect the system, and then I'll do it my way. This is something that we were talking about before, Lyall. It's you really just want to say, it's a proven system. It works. I promise. It's working. Do the system, right?
That's a very expensive choice when you do it that way.
Right.
Millions of dollars lost. Yeah.
So that's why we had the success we had. When we met Mike, we'd been mentored before. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to be mentored, you got to do what the mentor, right, says you need to do.
Exactly.
So when I met Mike, I said, okay, Mike, I will do whatever you tell me to do exactly.
This is something that you learned from your previous mentor.
Right.
This
in
is
my 20s.
Part of the story, right?
Exactly what you tell me to do, I will do it to a T perfectly. I will not waver. And you told him the same thing.
Well, no, not quite. I was. Do you remember in the beginning? I was driving Mike nuts. Well, why do we do this and why do that and why do we say it this way and why do we say it
Which
that
I'm
way?
sure you guys get a lot of at Five Rings.
Yeah,
You were,
of course,
you were
right?
going that journey yourself.
And I think maybe with women especially, we got to make sure that we know that this is okay. And I just kept bugging the heck out of him, making him crazy. And he finally said, okay, we need to make an agreement. 12 months, just trust me. Can you just trust me in 12 months? And then at the end of 12 months, you can kick my behind if it doesn't work.
Right.
And that changed everything.
Because you did it for 12
Changed
months.
everything. I just went, all right. What do I have to lose? And I have everything to gain, right? We had everything to gain.
Yeah.
And those decisions to just work the model and trust him. And we didn't know at the time, he saw our future way more clear than we saw it at the time. So, you don't see any of that in the beginning.
Right.
So you just really have to have some blind faith for a while and just get in there, do the work, and man, you're going to, at some point pop out the other end and be like, oh,
Right.
that was a good choice.
Talk about this this idea of synthetic experience, right? As it applies to what we're currently discussing, right? You basically went to your mentor, Mike, and before that, your mentor, you learned it from that guy who said, just do exactly what I tell you to do for X period of time, and I promise you, if you promise me to do that, I promise I'll pour into you, and I promise that you'll be better for it. Talk about this idea of synthetic experience and why it's so important, Lyall.
So my first mentor, his name is Bob. I got into the resort real estate business when I was 29 years old. Called me in the office, said, close the door, sit down. I did. And there was 30 other agents in the other room waiting for the Monday morning meeting. He said, okay, so you're brand new. He said, I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm pretty successful at it. He said, if I've offered this to every other agent in the other room, but no one's taken me up on it. I said, what? He said, well, you ever heard that experience is the best teacher? I said, yeah. He said, well, there's something better than experience. I said, what's that? He said, synthetic experience. I said, what do you mean by that? He says, well, if I told you you needed to walk through a minefield before you come into the office tomorrow, would you want to go first or would you want to follow somebody? I said, I'd like to follow somebody.
Right.
He said, that's synthetic experience. So he taught me every little intricacy that you could think of, on how to meet people and just all of it, and words and this and that. And as a matter of fact, last time I did the synthetic experience speech at Five Rings Financial, I got to thinking more about Bob, my first mentor. And I was 29 years old. My ego was pretty big, so I had thought that I made all the sales. Mm-hmm. But when I look back on it with a different lens, I thought to myself, I did all the presentation, but on every meeting, I called Bob in. Bob made every sale. He was the mentor, but not only the mentor, but he actually was the glue. He's what made it all happen. So that was why I was so open to work with Mike, is because he said the same thing. He said, well, of course, he said, if you've been doing this for 21 years, I pretty much know everything there is to know. Just put me in front of people. So I did that, and for the very first year, Mike did almost every sale that we did, and he gave us half the money.
Yeah, right.
Like, holy smokes, right? So that's what made me finally look back and say, okay, wait a second, I wasn't quite as cool as I thought I was. When I was 29, saying, oh yeah, I made all this money. I was amazing. No, I wasn't. Bob was amazing. So I
But
met
you were soaking that up. You were there in every meeting, listening to how Bob did it, watching how he did it, making mental notes, kind of learning through his experience, right?
Yeah.
This synthetic experience that he was talking
And
about.
then so Mike picked the ball up right from that point when we started working together. Did the same thing that Bob did. Every person I put him in front of, he either sold them something or recruited them, and that was the other huge. The reason we've had so much success is Mike created the foundation for us from the very beginning,
Right.
of building a team.
Yep. And that is the amazing thing about the synthetic experience idea. It's the idea. I think what Bob was saying to you is, yes, experience is great. Experience is awesome. You get to go through life and you get to fall on your face and then you get to learn from that, right? And then you come out of the other side having learned something. So that's what experience does for us, is through our failures, we learn better ways of doing things. Synthetic experience being, what if you didn't have to fall on your face and learn from me falling on my face
Exactly.
10 years ago?
Yeah.
I'll just teach you the lesson.
Yep.
Right? And you don't have to fall on your face, and your nose can stay, not broken from all the falls on your face. It's pretty incredible. When we were having this discussion earlier before the podcast, you were talking about being there with a great mentor and just being able to soak up from them. And the first thing I said, it was me and Lee Duncan in the room. I said, that's exactly what I did when I came to Alliance Group 10 years ago. Is I didn't know anything about the industry, and I just listened to Lee speak, and I soaked up his ways of saying things and his little mannerisms, his ways, his phrases that he coined in the way he taught. I did it a lot, kind of unconsciously, and I said I did that from Lee, and Lee immediately said without missing a beat, and that's what I did from Jerry Stratton. So it is awesome to hear how big of a role mentorship plays, not only in y'all's amazing story, but in Five Rings. It's something that you guys put a lot of value on, and it shows the results. The proof is in the pudding, as they say, right?
There's so many industries that do that. You have the master teaching the apprentice, plumbers, electricians, doctors.
Right.
And, we're working in an industry with people's biggest decisions.
Right.
Don't you think it would work here too? I mean,
Absolutely.
it might be a good
It makes
idea.
perfect sense, doesn't
Might be
it?
a good idea.
When you think about it, it's a completely rational thing.
Totally.
It's not really rocket science. It's, but what the mentor is looking for, what your mentors were looking for, they don't want to have to argue with their mentee about what they should do. I don't have time for that. I'm a busy guy. What Bob and Mike were looking for is, do you promise that you will do what I ask you to do? Because I have so much to teach you, but I just need to give it to you. I don't need to fight with you to take it, right?
Yep.
So for people out there who might be convinced by this conversation that we're having, that I need to go find this mentor, that's something I think that's very important, is that your role as a mentee is extremely important in your attitude going into that type of relationship. What makes a good mentee? What do you guys say?
Coachable.
Coachable. That's number one.
And being able to manage their ego, because at some point you do think you have the answers. This is an industry that takes a while to actually understand it all. And, I don't think you ever know everything.
No, I think Mike would tell you that he's
Constant
learning every day.
So that being a student forever with it, having, that kind of attitude about it where you're always willing to learn more. And we do a lot of collaboration on our team. There are few cases that aren't involving a couple people talking to each other.
Right.
Two heads are better than one always.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the way that things happen in our team.
So when we very first started working with Mike, he came to Denver in September of 2003. And we just hung out for 2 days. Drove around Estes Park and this and that. And I thought to myself, what are we doing? Why are we just hanging out? What the heck is going on here, right? And then he said, when he's leaving, he said, okay, I'll be back in October. I said, what do I do? He said, well, just put me in front of people. I'll do all the work and give you half the money. And it took me a long time to finally figure out why he just hung out with us for those 2 days.
Why do you think that was?
He wanted to find out if we were coachable. And also if we had that little flame burning in our, because I was old already. I was 1 month short of being 49 years old. And normally when you work with people of that age, a lot of them think they already arrived.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I know this.
Right.
So I think he also wanted to make sure that we didn't have that attitude.
Right.
So he's pretty smart.
Yeah. Yeah, you must be, right?
You're right.
It's just an awesome story. You guys now we're, oh my gosh, almost 20 years into this.
Yeah.
Where are you at right now as far as, I mean, Five Rings in general has gone to 15 million. It's you guys are exploding. What are your goals that you have in front of you for 2023 and beyond? What are the Donnellys thinking about every day and trying to accomplish here in the near future? What are the next goals?
Well, we've just started a couple brand new teams. I mean, brand spanking new
Wow.
folks.
You're still doing it.
We probably don't need to do it, but
But it's fun.
it's fun.
It's really exciting working with new people and giving them glimpses of what their future can look like and helping them. It is that pay up for it. Oh my gosh, with our backgrounds, if we can do it, anybody could do this, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more for those viewers who might not know the backgrounds. You guys, we ran over this earlier, but you guys you consider yourselves sort of serial entrepreneurs until you met Mike, right?
Kind of serial black sheep too, though.
Yeah.
I dropped out of high school, right? And then our life was kind of a mess for a long, long time.
We did a lot of things in our early days, and then the 15 years prior to this, we had a pretty good company in the construction industry that was very successful, and then we had one big year-long project, a big industrial project that was one of those things that at the time you think it's the worst thing that ever happened to you.
Devastated us.
Yeah,
right?
looking at bankruptcy and dealing with the IRS and
just one huge deal that was going to be the big one, and it fell through in the most massively
project. Yeah,
$250,000 they didn't pay us.
Oh my goodness!
After an entire year.
Oh my
so
gosh.
It was the worst day of my life, but then when we look back now, it's like, oh, that was the biggest blessing of my life.
Isn't it strange how that works out? And it's like the older I get, I'm 40 now, but the older I get, the more I kind of recognize the pattern of when something bad happens that you think is terrible. It's that whole thing. It sounds trite, but when one door closes, another opens, right?
Absolutely true.
And you guys, I imagine you couldn't be more happy that huge contract fell through.
Yeah. We've learned a lot since then, and we've done a lot of, part of what Mike provides is not only an environment where you can learn to be, get a master's in business, but there's also this side to it of when you're working with people and growing and leading other people, you have to do a lot of personal work, right? You got to get out of your own way, and you got to get out of your own head, and you got to maybe heal up some old stories and replace them with some good stories, and that's definitely started being in this environment with him. Definitely started that, and the ability now to, like you said, look at challenges as what do I need to see here? Triggers. Something triggers you. It's like, ooh, here's a lesson. What do I need to learn here?
Right.
So that's part that gets you into the space where we had something happen a couple years ago, right before one of the talks for National Training Camp, and where maybe 15 years ago we would have been pining over that for days or weeks. It was recovered and reworked and figured out in a matter of hours, and so it's just.
It's experience.
It is experience, and it's being surrounded with people that are encouraging you to grow and rise up above these just survival thoughts and start really designing and engineering your own future, making your own choices consciously, and managing your self-talk and all of those things that.
It is something
really important.
I've always noticed with Five Rings. Again, I've been with Alliance Group 10 years, so it's I would say probably 9 years ago was my first Five Rings event. It was at I can't remember the name of it. I don't think it was a Best Western, but it was in
Hampton Inn.
Hampton Inn. It was at Hampton Inn in Denver. I went with Jerry Stratton. It was so cold. I'd never been in negative weather before.
It was.
My water bottle and my backpack from the plane froze in the plane in the car ride from the airport to the hotel, and it was I think maybe December. I want to say it was definitely December, but I want to say it was 50 people maybe that were there, a little bit more possibly. I've watched this organization, and it's not just the numbers at the events. It is what Tina was referring to. There's growth happening. There's personal growth happening. I'm not just talking about the numbers, which are obviously going up, and obviously I think tie into that personal growth. But you're seeing people who I met 8 years ago that were terrified of speaking. They're publicly, their confidence levels were lower. You can kind of pick up on that things, and you see people developing confidence. You see them literally going and doing Toastmasters classes and developing skills, and then all the training that you all do, and they're learning their craft and they're becoming more confident, and then they're passing that confidence to a new group, and it's incredible to watch. Not just the professional development, but the personal development that happens within Five Rings Financial, and it's got to be really, really gratifying for you guys to. I mean, you sit back after 20 years of watching people develop. It's got to be amazing to kind of look out over this huge group of people and just say, "Look at us, man! look at what we're doing, right? Look at what we've built."
It's probably easier to see it in others than you see it in yourself. Like we look at some of the people that we've worked with and watch them have moments of being in such gratitude, of saying, I'm finally in a place where I can be authentic and work in my areas of gifts and talents and just really, grow into this powerful, empowered person who's now really impacting their communities. And it's an amazing thing to watch.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. You guys, thank you so much for being guests on the podcast today. We're actually in the studio filming a couple of Lyall's his greatest hits of napkin presentations. So I know all of our agents are going to be looking forward to kind of seeing that and getting to learn from the awesome experience. Both synthetic and actual experience, earned experience, I suppose you would say, of these two awesome people. Tina and Lyall, thank you guys so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you. It's so great to be here with you guys.
Me
Thanks
too.
for inviting us in.
Listen to this interview and more on the Alliance Group podcast.